Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. This is Rihanna Ebanks Bab. I am your host for today's Self Project. Okay, so I am the founder of the plan, and the Self Project is a new project that I've designed under the plan. Umbrella. So, the whole purpose of this is to have in depth discussions in a series that we are able to then discover and unpack and develop the self in all aspects of life. These live podcasts will unpack the meaning of these self words, how we embody, deny, or improve these aspects of self, and share stories, tips, and sources of support. So that way we can see every life fulfilled, which is the full version of the self acronym. So the shows are held every fourth Sunday of the month. So hence why we're here today. And we will explore a self-worth to discuss these well-anticipated soul-changing sessions. With the help of our guests and our audience, we will pick a self-word and we will discuss them at each session. So make sure you are providing your self-word suggestions throughout the show. So this month, we are kicking off with the power of self awareness, which was the most voted self word from our last session, with a spectacular 56% of votes across our social media platforms. Okay, so make sure you stay tuned. We are going to be back with our guests in a moment. See you soon. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. Those of you that missed my wonderful, wonderful first intro, my name is Rihanna Ebanks Bab. I am your host and facilitator for today. Welcome to the Self Project, where we will be discussing the benefits of self awareness. And I'm so excited for you to meet our guests. So, without further delay, I will introduce our first guest, who is Celia Conrad. And Celia is a relationship expert, author, and founder of Your Relationship Guru. Welcome, Celia, to the stage. Welcome to the Self Project.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here today.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for agreeing. So, I'm going to ask you, Celia, please tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and why you decided to be part of the power of self awareness.
Yes, well, as you introduced me, obviously I'm a relationship expert. I am essentially a coach and I help people basically who are going through a breakup or divorce or have any relationship issues or bereavement to get through that and to come out the other side and to rebuild their lives really. So my background, I was a family lawyer. And I did that for a while. And then I obviously decided I had a lot of personal loss and
Mm-hmm.
things that happened to me. And really, that was part of the reason why I decided to basically transition from that into what I
Mm-hmm.
do now. So it's really helping people, it's making them. It's making that change, that positive change when they have trauma, pain and loss.
Mm.
And obviously, what you're doing here to me is very important because, I believe the most important relationship is the one we have with ourselves, and everything starts with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so self awareness is key. So that's why
Yes.
I'm here and delighted to be.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will move over to our next guest. We have Terry Floyd. Terry is the founder of TF Solutions Center and the Note to Thrive Collaborative. She is a multi certified professional coach, practitioner, and published author. Welcome to the stage, Terry.
Thank you for having me, Rihanna.
Thank you. Thank you for being here as well. Amazing. So, again, please tell the audience who you are, what you do, and why you are part of the Power of Self Awareness show.
Well, my name is Terry Floyd. I am a note to self journal and mindset coach. Also a behavioral scientist where I study human behavior and what motivates us to do the things that we do.
Hmm.
I am, as she stated, a published author. I have several personal development journals that focus on self. And
Mm,
so the reason why I'm really interested in this platform, and I think it's amazing what you're doing,
thank you.
kind of like Celia, I was not married, but at the same time, I was trying to find my identity, especially having a lot of different titles. being a mom, daughter, sister, all of these things, behavioral scientists. But outside of that, who was actually Terri? And so in 2018, I was on a journey to try to find out my true identity outside of those titles. And so I'm excited to be a part of this platform because I think it's great and amazing because we definitely need to identify and know who we are within self.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I feel so honored to be in the presence of you both because I can just already feel the wealth of information that is going to come out from both different perspectives. And we're international, guys. So we've got British and US here. So I'm very excited for that as well. So I think let's kick off the show with a bit of definition because I think it's very important for us to understand the topic that we're actually going to be discussing. So I came across this definition about what self awareness is, and I think it's important for us to just read it out to the audience, or feel free to read it yourself if you don't want me to read it, but I'm going to read it anyway. So, I came across this website called Jenny Nurick, and jennynurick.com states self awareness calls us to reflect on our words and actions, to be curious about our triggers, to understand our history and its impact on who we are as adults. Self awareness calls us to become intimate with our emotions rather than running from them, to pause and to be with them. Self awareness calls us to become aware of our strengths and weaknesses, to own both our light and our shadow attributes. As we know ourselves, a natural sense of self worth arises. We know deeply that we are enough. Just for this moment, from my heart to yours, know that you are enough. Now, I will kick off with you both asking, what do you think about that definition? Do you agree? Do you disagree? There's some parts I agree with, some parts I don't, to be honest. But what's your thoughts on that definition? And I will ask Celia first.
I think I mean, it's quite an ambitious
Mm,
definition. I think that self-awareness, true self-awareness is really hard to achieve.
mm,
Because, how you've got to be really objective for
mhm,
self-awareness. You've got to be able to look at yourself objectively. And that's difficult,
mm,
because when things happen to us, we don't in
yeah.
the spur of the moment. When we deal with things, we are reactive.
Mm,
It's like in brain entrainment almost. We almost have to train ourselves to almost stop and do that, and we can't always do that, and sometimes it's not always right. We do have to go with our instincts for things.
mm,
I think it's a balance. And I think that, obviously, when things happen to you and you go back and see, you look at, why did I do that, then you learn self-awareness from that. So, but I think being objective really is the key thing. And stepping, it's almost like looking back at yourself and
mm,
thinking about your actions, your behaviors, your feelings, and why you do what you do,
yeah.
and then how other people see you as well. So, there's a lot that comes into the lot that comes into it, in
Yeah.
terms of how self-aware we are. And probably none of us are as self-aware as we would like to be, and it's all work in progress. Well, and I certainly feel I'm work in progress. It's a constant, and I'm learning from my clients,
Yeah.
in day to day. So yeah, that's my initial view on
Thank you.
that, obviously, statement. Yes.
Much appreciated, Celia. Much appreciated. And Terry, what about yourself? What do you think?
I definitely agree. I think it's objective and it is a little bit complicated, especially when we experience life, different transitions, different chapters in our life.
Mm,
So we're always learning a new part of us, or even if there's changes, transitions that we don't really want to experience or deal with,
mm,
but you have to confront it. Sometimes if we're not careful, because it's such a difficult path to go on and where you have to be honest with yourself, we don't
mm,
really want to cover that or uncover that or unreveal that. So we'll try to block that out and move on to something else. So it's definitely layers
mm,
to understanding your self-awareness and knowing who you are, because we're forever evolving. And there's some things that we may be aware of and stick to that. And then like Celia said, it's also the mindset of knowing what other people, how they view us and how they look at us,
Mm.
and even how we view and look at ourselves. So yeah.
Yes, yes. And you know what? When I think of self-awareness, it automatically brings me back to the concept of the Johari window.
Mhm.
And for those of you that don't know, the Johari window is a self-awareness exercise that looks at four separate quadrants of visibility, I would say, and looking at how aware you are of yourself, aware you are of others, how others are aware of you, but you're not aware of yourself,
Mhm.
and the blind spots altogether. You're not aware, and others aren't aware. So I think those are some. I've already given away a tip, which I wasn't meant to do. I promised I'll keep the tips to the end, but yeah, it's something that reminds me to how to be aware of self in the presence of others as well. So
Yes.
I guess this helps me then go into my next question, because I think you've kind of touched upon a definition of what you define self awareness to be. But what are the different levels and types of self awareness that you're aware of? And the reason why I asked this, I'm going to quickly screen share my screen, is because I came across this self awareness wheel, and I found it quite interesting because, oh, where's it gone? Yeah, self awareness wheel. I found it quite interesting because it covers five separate areas that I guess you both covered. So it covers thinking, it covers feeling, it covers doing, wanting, and sensing. And this is a source from Miller, Milani, and Wackman back in 1975. Now, I know there's a lot of different adaptations to understanding self awareness, or even specifically the self awareness wheel. But in your opinion and in your expertise, what are the different types of self awareness that you encounter or people need to be aware of? And yeah, how do we identify them? So I'll first start with Terry.
Okay. Well, I think about when you talked about or the asked the question of the types of self awareness, I look at it at two types, internal and external.
Mm,
Internally is how we see our values, our passions, aspirations, how we react to environments, different things, including our thoughts, our feelings.
mm,
Kind of highlighted what you shared on that wheel, but it's associated with like your social control and your happiness.
mm,
External self-awareness is to again understand how others view us,
mm,
in terms of the same kind of the factors of what I just mentioned about the thoughts, feelings, behavior, strengths, weaknesses. And so a lot of times, and I'll try to stay within on the personal, but then also bring in kind of when we interact and working at work.
mhm,
So it's like for leaders, how they view their employees, if they see kind of their strengths and their weaknesses and how their relationship is developed and built with them. So that's the two levels that I see and think about when it comes to the internal and external self-awareness. And
mhm.
that's all I'm gonna say for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great, because I like the simplicity of it as well. I think it can be very complicated, much like what we explained with the definition. It can be very complicated, um, unpacking all these different facets, but simplifying it to internal and external allows people to see it in a way that I guess enables them to understand the different aspects of themselves in regards to self-awareness, and themselves in relation to others in regards to self-awareness. So thank you for that, Terry. Thank you. And Celia, what about yourself?
No, definitely. I would agree that obviously there is this internal and external, the two types.
Mm,
What I find a lot with the clients that I have is that the radar is not switched on in terms of the internal stuff, because they come to me with a lot of,
mm,
say, emotional blocks, but they may not
mm,
even be aware that they've got them.
mm,
So you
mm,
can't, without the awareness, you can't even address it objectively. So it's like then we're looking at, negative patterns, habits, behaviors,
mm,
old stories that come up. And that's why things are happening the way they are in their lives, things they want to change, why they might be stuck. And then obviously going into that
mm,
internal world and then opening up and seeing, wow, they then see they get that awareness. It's like, oh yeah, I've been doing that for so long, now I realize why. But
Yeah.
obviously also needing to change it, because
Yeah.
obviously the whole point is you can be aware of something, and if you can be aware but you don't do anything about it, you're going to
Absolutely.
carry on. So you've got to change it. So that's flipping that negative to a positive. And also then the course that then has a huge knock-on effect in their awareness in the outside world. So again, with clients, I've got someone who's going through a divorce, and it's how they might perceive their ex, or something that's going on, you know, with arrangements with their children or other people they have to interact with. And as Terri talks about in the workplace,
Mm.
you know, you have obviously managers who, if they have that degree of awareness, then they obviously manage their staff better because they've got that understanding. It's like perception. It's stepping into someone else's shoes. It's like, you know, oh yeah, that's maybe how they think about this, or maybe they see me this way, and then you can change things. So yeah, those are the two key elements I would say when you're talking about, you know, awareness, self-awareness, that really are, you know, the main factors in how we, and in the drivers really, and how we actually, you know, create better self-awareness in ourselves and in others.
Yeah. See, I really liked what you said about specifically doing something about it, because I'm a big believer, like, yeah, you can be aware that you do this, that you do that, that you do the other, but do you have the willingness and the power to change it? And I think a lot of the time that's where people's ability to develop greater self-awareness into action is then limiting them
Yeah,
developing themselves even further. You know, and the whole
absolutely.
point of this whole program of, you know, living, seeing every life fulfilled, is that you're able to remove those specific barriers that are hindering you, like what you said, emotional blocks, for example. What's hindering you from that aspect of self-actualization? So my next question here is, what are some of the most common barriers of self-awareness, and how can a lack of self-awareness hinder self-actualization? And yeah, I'll go back to Celia on this one, seeing as you answered the nice one so succinctly as well.
Yeah, in some ways, it's almost a question that answers itself, in the sense that, you know, the barriers to the self-awareness is the lack of self-awareness. So it's almost like, it's like that, you know, it's like that you've got to get out of that phase. So you need, if you can't see it objectively yourself, and let's face it, many of us, you know, when we're very close to things, we can't.
Yes.
You need someone else to help you with that, and it's like you get, you know, other people's opinions, and, you know, like, how do you perceive me in the outside world? What do I do?
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously when you get that level of self-awareness, then obviously then of course you can make the change. It's like you've got to know, because as I say, so many people don't, we could be going through our daily lives and we're not aware of the things that we do, and we're doing them, and we might think that we're aware. We might think that we are, or we also we ask ourselves a lot of questions, why, all the time. Oh, why do I do this? But then our brain is very good at telling us, you know, giving us the answers that maybe we want to hear, as opposed to what we should be hearing. And that someone else who's objective and looks at us will say, no, you're actually doing this, and did you realize you were doing this? But as I say, it's when you've got that, then you've got that self-awareness, then you can make the change, and you've got to want to make the change, and you have to work at it. You know, as I say, we're all work in progress, and it's like things come up all the time. You think, oh wow, I didn't think about that, and it's like, why did I react to that? And oh yeah, I could have done that differently, and yeah, now I'm aware of that, then I can do it next time. If that happens, I'll do it differently.
Yes, yes. I like that. It's like the constant feedback and adjustment. So thank you for that, Celia. Terri, yourself, please chime in on this question.
Absolutely. I think, and I agree with Celia, but I also think of the barriers that affects us where we're being fully aware of our self-awareness when our basic needs are not fully met. Or a specific need isn't really met. When those needs that we're aware of, knowing that we need those needs, especially when it comes to basic needs, we're not focusing on anything else but that need not being met.
Yes.
A lot of times, again, even with the self-awareness, we have to be aware, but sometimes it's like we may know or have a little bit of a glimpse of knowing that there's an issue, but right now, if this basic need isn't met, if I'm hungry, or if my job, I have experienced job loss, or my finances are not where they're supposed to be, my relationships are not working in this space, we're going to focus on that specific thing
Yes.
and not actually what we truly need to tap into within our own awareness within self. So I
Yes.
think that's a lot of the barriers, because a lot of times we'll focus on most of the time the objective things to the outside that's usually kind of out of our control, but we want to just focus on it because we don't
Mm,
really want to confront and look in the mirror, or the man or the woman in the mirror, what's really going
yes.
on.
Yes, I can definitely say I've done that throughout my years. It's one of these things where I fail to hold the mirror up to myself and be like, Rihanna, XYZ, you need to do this. But
Yes.
sometimes I will do it and I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to put that mirror away. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to completely ignore it. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I can
Yeah.
completely understand. And I guess that there's a lot of stories, testimonials, case studies that you've got where maybe yourself or a client has unfortunately lacked the self-awareness that they may have needed in a moment of time. So please share some of the stories that you may have up your sleeve, and I will
Mhm.
start off with you, Terry.
Okay. And I'll start with myself because I am definitely my first client.
Hmm.
It starts with me first. Years ago, I would say in my early 20s, I was fresh out of school and thinking that I was just smart and knowing everything, knowing
Mm.
more than people that already have experience, than more experience than I did. Working in different spaces, working with teams, different people at different jobs. And I would always go home and talk to my mom and say, so and so, I try to provide this idea, and so told me, no, we need to wait on this. And I'm like, every time I try to bring these great ideas, these brilliant ideas, they listen to them and then they take it and don't give me the credit, or they just say, not your time, just wait. And so I'll leave that job and go somewhere else. And it's like it
Mm.
was a similar pattern each time. And so, me being me, because I'm thinking that I'm right, they're wrong, they should just listen to me because I'm aware, and I have all of this awareness. And then my mom said one thing. She said, I'm not saying that they don't have issues. I'm not saying that they may, y'all probably the way that you maybe presented it rubbed it the wrong way, but every space that you're going into, that you're encountering with these different people, the
Mm.
common denominator is you. And so when she first initially said that, I was like, no, you're wrong. You're my mom. I'm thinking you're going to take my side, but of course not. You're just going to point out that I'm not right. And
Yeah.
so one of my mentors, I was talking to her at the same time, telling her everything. And she said, so you're the problem. Each time you go into these spaces, there's always an issue,
Yeah.
but yet it's never them, it's always you. And
Yes.
so when she said it, I think it finally clicked. I'm like, wait, so my mom was right. But then
Mm.
now I have to look at myself, and I have worked with my clients a lot of times. They will always want to bring about what everyone else is doing. I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure
Mm.
that they may have some things that they may need to work on. Right now, we're talking about you. And so, what is it about you and how you react to certain things? Or
Mm.
why did you present yourself in a way or state it in this sense? And then, of course, they're going to give you they're feeding off of your energy and your reaction. So, pay attention to how you respond. We can't control what everyone else is doing, but you can
Yes.
control how you react to it. That means that you have to be aware of how you're responding, because if you come in with this aggressive energy or the standoffish, of course no one is going to be
Hmm.
open to want to receive what you have to say. If you're coming there with a frown on your face, that's already putting their guard up as well. If you just attempt to show yourself friendly, smile a little bit, just a little bit, you may get a different reaction or a different response. And so I had to work on that with myself. I used to have this mug a lot of times when I would walk around, and people
Yeah.
would even say, like, hey, smile. And I'm like, why are you talking to me? Why are you telling me to smile? And then I realized, like, well, even though I'm not thinking about them, I'm thinking about other things. But right now, you need to be aware in the present moment, because
Mm.
what you're thinking about that's happening at home or on your way to this place right now, be present in the moment. And that
Yes.
focus had to get myself together to make sure that I am tuning into self and being aware of myself. I can't really
Mm,
control anyone else, but what am I doing, or what energy am I feeding off for
mm.
other people to receive or respond to it?
Powerful story. Very powerful story. And I can relate, especially, yeah, I've walked away from a few jobs. I'm like, they did this and they did that. And I was just, that's the
Mhm.
line. I was just,
Yeah, I was only.
I was only just, yeah. I can relate to that 1,000%. Thank you so much, Terry, for sharing. And Celia, what about yourself? Do you have
Well,
any
no, I can certainly
testimonials?
relate to that. I mean, I can think even going back to when I was at school and I'd be very enthusiastic about something and I would say something to my teacher and I think this is really great, and then they kind of like say, well, no, and that's not a great idea, and then I'd be like very sensitive about it, and then like taking it personally and taking it as a criticism, and then kind of feeling a
Mm,
bit resentful towards that teacher
yeah.
and everything
Mhm.
else. And then it's like, then you get that kind of, then it sort of moved over to almost like being the more people pleaser type thing. It's like, well, I'll
Yeah.
do this, that will be actually what they want, as opposed to
Mm,
being, okay, your authentic self. And it's like,
Mhm.
that doesn't feel comfortable either. And I
Mhm.
think,
mm,
it's like constantly, evolving. And this like happens, as say, in jobs and all the things you've done, and you think situations where you've been in, say with an employer, where you think, hey, I'm doing all this work and it's like, I've done all this for you, this is a really good idea, and they're thinking, no, that's not quite right. And then you think, oh, why are they not like, what's going on here? Well, I'm not getting that kind of feedback, that response that I want to. And you think, well, then I'm thinking later, I look back now and think, yeah, because actually, you probably should have like thought about how it was working for them
Mhm.
and
mm,
how they saw it in terms of
mm,
managing their team or something else. Because I would do that when I was a team lead at a bank, and I was like, oh, I've got this really great idea about this, doing this, and it's like, no, we're not going to do that. So it's like, but why not? Then it's like, not necessarily. You've got to think more about everything that's in the mix. It's how you might feel about it, but also how they
yes.
feel about it, how it affects other people. And yeah, it's not necessarily a criticism of you.
Mhm.
It's about just how how it all works in the mix. So yeah, there's a balance, and it's like
Mm,
getting that balance and knowing that it's not necessarily something that is wrong with you, but it's
Mhm.
something that you need to be aware of.
Yes.
yes.
And that you can then, when you're aware of it, then you can actually, maybe you're processing that response differently, so you don't take
Mm,
it personally, and then you're seeing that person's point of view. And I think
yes.
that's really,
Mhm.
and that's for me, those are big lessons.
Yes.
Yeah. Indeed, being able to, yeah, see a situation from someone else's perspective definitely increases
Mm,
your self awareness of self as well as empathy. Because I think it
Mhm.
takes a great deal of
absolutely.
humility to be able to stand in someone else's shoes without judgment, without criticism, and just be in their moment, or even if it is alongside someone. Say, and I will use an example of grief, and that's the reason why, is because I'm
Mm,
thinking of a recent show that I did, and
Mhm.
a comment that was made was about sitting with someone,
mm,
having the awareness to
absolutely.
be able to sit with someone
Yeah.
and not impose on their situation.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
definitely been something I've found difficult, because I know
Mhm.
that I'm a helper, I like to help,
Me too.
and I like
Fixing
to,
people.
Yes.
Mm,
exactly, I'm a people
that's not what
pleaser.
they need.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
they just need to be heard, they need to be
Mhm.
Yeah.
seen, they need to be felt, and you have no right to tell them how to grieve that process. Just
Mhm.
be with them, just sit with
Mhm.
them.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of my well, I always say self-awareness or growth happens in uncomfortable situations. It's not,
Mm,
it doesn't happen on a
definitely.
yoga mat or
Nope.
walking in the park, or no, it
Mhm.
happens when something really uncomfortable, whether to
Mm,
yourself or to someone else, happens, and you're
mm,
walking that journey with them. And
Yes.
that's where I'm at with it. So yeah,
That's
thank
good.
you. Thank you both. So what about so you've both given examples of yourselves.
Mhm.
What about any clients or friends or family? Obviously keep it all anonymized, but there any examples of where greater self-awareness for others would have been yeah, we can definitely have not done with that,
Mhm.
or you could have done that. Do you have any examples that you'd like to share before we head over to our break?
I
Um,
just, oh,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking about what you shared from your the previous show about grief. And one of the things that I had to learn, even with working with my clients, to provide advice, but at the same time, just sit and listen, because a lot of times we already know the answer. Even when we go into people,
Yes.
we know the answer,
Yes.
but we just need kind of that reassurance. And I used to, working with clients, get upset when they wouldn't listen to what I would say when I would share the information and like, oh, this is what you do. But at the
Yeah.
same time, providing that advice is great, but it's still
Mm.
up to them. And just sometimes letting them talk it out, they can
Yes.
find the answer themselves or find the solution that they're needing. And I have been being intentional with them within the
Mm.
last year and a half to just sometimes sit and listen, be active
Mm.
listener, and guide them when they need it, but at the same time allow them to kind of process and talk it through.
Mm.
And this is, of course, that's not really a specific client, but I was just thinking about me with my awareness that kind of what you stated, it's about being present a lot of times. It's just
Mm.
listening ear, being
Yes.
present. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
enough right there.
Yeah.
Being present in
Honestly.
that moment. So yeah.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for sharing. And yes, it is just about being present. And just before I move over to you, Celia, it reminds me of a saying that I say at work when we're having, we call them quote unquote uncomfortable conversations. And
Mhm.
listen with kind ears, watch with kind eyes, and have an open, kind heart. Because sometimes you don't know what the other person's going to say. You don't know how you're going to receive it, but it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you should now jump on and diminish their experience. So yeah, that's another tip. I've got to stop giving tips during the show, but yeah, it's another tip there. But Celia, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think definitely being present and obviously active listening is really key, and also asking the right questions at the right time. I
Mhm.
think for me, the transition really from when I was a lawyer, I was obviously listening, but it was almost like where in that role, people would they're coming to me for the advice they want me to tell them. So, but
Mm,
as a coach, that's not how it works. And in
Mhm.
terms of how I help people, it's also, you are motivating, guiding. You're not telling them. They get their light bulb moments because you're taking them through a process and they see things and then they
yes.
can change things. It's very, very different.
Mhm.
And I think that's sort that's a lot of awareness for me as well, and how I work with clients now. And actually
Mm,
it's very fulfilling, because when people make that change themselves
yeah.
and they
Mhm.
want to make that change and they realize that, oh yes, that was what was the block, and that now I've changed this, it's made such a huge difference to my life. That is very
Mm,
fulfilling for me, and it's not me doing it, it's them doing it. So
yeah.
Right.
I'm helping them do that. I'm
Yeah.
helping them move forward. I'm helping them make the change. And so I do a lot of grief work because that's one of the
Mm,
things that I do. And as Terry says, it's really key, that listening, just being present for people, witnessing the grief. It's, we don't push people on in grief.
mm,
There is no timeline. So it's working with them at the pace that they want to work at. And that's really important. And I
yeah.
think, yeah, I mean, that's really the way that I work with my clients. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Lovely. Okay, so we are going to have a quick break, but we're not going anywhere. We're just going to have a bit of a game to break up the conversation a bit. So, those of you that joined our last session for the Self Project, we played a this and that game, this or that. This or that, and we're going to play it again. But this is a wellness edition. Okay, so the reason for the game is, no, I'll tell you at the end. Let's just dig in. Let's dig in. Let's dig in. Let's dig in. So, before I go into the game, actually, no, we'll do that bit after. Yeah, so let's go with the game. So, who would like to go first? You've got 3 seconds to put yourself forward, or I'm going to pick on you.
I'll go.
Go ahead, Celia. Right. So, you have to answer the questions without thinking, just a split decision of what your preference is. Okay. I'm going to
Mhm.
give you 4 or 5 this or that questions starting from now. Okay. So, would you rather to sleep an hour or read a book for an hour?
Read a book.
Would you rather go for a run or go for a bike ride?
Go for a bike ride.
Would you rather call a friend or text a friend?
Call a friend.
Why would you like to call a friend rather than text a friend?
I like that personal contact.
Mhm.
Hmm, I like that. I like that answer.
Mhm.
I
And
like to connect with people. Yeah,
yes, yes, that's true. And last but not least, would you rather make someone laugh or say good morning?
make them laugh.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much. Now, Terry, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, would you rather leave a kind note for someone or volunteer for somewhere?
Leave a kind note.
Ooh. Would you rather play a sport or exercise for 30 minutes?
Exercise.
Okay. Would you prefer to listen to music or watch a funny show?
Oh, listen to music. Like
Okay, why
both.
did you hesitate on that one? Go ahead.
I would like both, but I'm like music. It helps you get a good vibe or get you up. It uplifts you depending on what type of music you. It
Yeah.
affects your mental. So yeah, it'll
Yes,
get you in a
it
good
does.
mood.
Okay, amazing. And would you rather Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Ah, I thought you was gonna say YouTube. Given the fact that we're on YouTube right
I
now,
know,
but
right?
don't worry, we'll get on Netflix one day. Okay, thank you for that. I'm gonna go back to Celia. I know I didn't say this, but yeah, are we gonna do breathing exercises or coloring exercises?
Colouring,
Oh, would you rather chewing gum or eating a healthy snack?
a healthy snack.
Okay, so why do you prefer breathing exercises?
Did I say colouring?
Oh, sorry,
You're
self-awareness.
just,
I need to be
you're
listening.
just, you're just trying to, you're just checking that I'm listening. That's funny. That was the trick question.
Mhm.
No, I just don't know. It's like color. It's just brightness. It's just,
Mhm.
I don't know. It just colors just seem just a good thing. I
Yeah,
was just
I like
picturing all the
coloring.
colors as you said it to me. I do color therapy. I guess it's one of the things
Yes,
that I'm
Mhm.
into. So
Mhm.
yeah,
same, same.
Yeah,
This one would have been a hard one for me. I probably would have picked both, to be fair.
I
But
know.
yeah.
Me too.
Okay, and Terry, would you rather to do a dance video or positive affirmations?
Dance video.
Ooh. And would you rather alone time or play a board game with friends?
Alone time. I'm an
And
introvert.
okay. Lovely, 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 lovely. Okie dokie. So that is the end of our game. That is the end of our game. So before we head back in, I'm going to say good morning to Sonia. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Much appreciated. And to our previous guest from last month, this is Nicola. So, hi, Nicola, Intuitive Guidance. Thank you for joining us. Right. So, before we head back over to our discussion, I would like to thank our sponsor, Terry Floyd, for providing our sponsor product for this month. So, Terry, as you well know, is an author, and she is also the founder of Note to Thrive Collaborative Collective. She has provided everyone on the show with a discount code for accessing her 30-day journal. Let me just bring it up so everyone. Yep, Terry, you've got it there.
I do.
Amazing. Thank you. Do you want to tell everyone a bit about the journal, what they can expect, and how it's benefited people?
Absolutely. This is the Note to Self 30-day self-discovery journal. It provides guided prompts as well as kind of inspirational notes and quotes throughout the process. Of course, in, encouraged to utilize it from day 1 through 30. But you have the option to skip around. These questions are questions that are asking you about you, as well as to discover who you are, to kind of tap into who am I, as well as the relationships that you have with individuals and other people. And it's about being open and honest because so you mentioned something in one of the questions about it's important to, while we want to be people pleasers and encouraging everyone else, it's important to be our authentic. And so
Yes.
sometimes with that, we have to go through this self discovery with finding out who we are, finding our true identity. This journal, kind of a little quick little cap, is was created for me initially. It was a
Mm,
process of 2018 when I was trying to discover who I was,
mm,
and to find my authentic self, because she was buried down from like hurt, heartbreak, a lot of different things that was going on in my life and transitions. And so I
mm,
was asking myself questions each day. And so I was journaling throughout the process. And so then afterwards, it came to me that this can help and be beneficial to other people. And so
yes.
I didn't really think, I'm like, created and put it out there, but then this is one of like my best-selling journals that a lot of people still come back to, that it's relevant no matter how old, or you may have did it 1 year and then a couple of years down the road you come back and like, I needed to kind of have this moment again to do a
Mm,
self-discovery, to get myself back to where I was, or to get myself in the present space of who I am now. So
mm. Amazing. Thank you so much. So, anyone that is looking forward to grabbing this steal, because it is a steal, Terry has offered the note to self journal for only $9. Okay. And you can grab this using the link in this comment below. You should be able to see it in the comments. Yeah, in the comment section. Click the link, grab your journal, and make sure you thank Terry at the end of your 30 days, because I'm sure you're going to have some amazing transformational breakthroughs. So thank you very much for that sponsor, Terry. Um, this link is it open indefinitely? Is there a certain time limit people need to be able to grab this deal?
it's open indefinitely.
Okay, see, look at you. You're all getting these amazing gifts, aren't you? Okay, so what I will also say, I will direct your attention to the next link. If you're interested in being a guest on an upcoming show, you can use this link here in the comment. If you want to learn more about the Self Project, click on this link in the comment. And if, like Terry, you want to become a sponsor for upcoming shows, feel free to reach out to me using this email. Okay. And we're going to jump back into the show. Thank you very much. Okay. So, what I will say is we've spoken a bit about a few little tips and tools, which I wasn't meant to do until this part of the show. So, we're going to bring it back round and throw some fire on it, because I think in order for us to understand what self awareness actually is, we need to know what tools or techniques that we are aware of that can help us improve, much like the 30-day note to self journal. So I will start off with you, Celia. What are some of the techniques you are aware of, or you've used, or you've encouraged your clients to use to help improve self awareness?
Well, journaling is one of them. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's really important. I mean, putting down your your thoughts and things that you've done that day, and how things worked out for you is really key.
Mm,
I, with my clients, we do a lot of gratitude journal, because
mm,
obviously being grateful for things, even if you can just find one thing to be grateful for a day, it makes a huge difference, because what you appreciate appreciates.
mm,
Mindfulness, I mean, different from meditation obviously, but mindfulness is just, it's in that present moment, in that time. It's just taking that time out just to be aware of yourself and your surroundings and what's going on, really, and just really sort of taking maybe 10 minutes to do that.
mm,
And I think, and certainly with my clients, a lot of it is I work with them in terms of, it's like communication. It's
mm,
like how they communicate with themselves. It's that inner voice, and it's how they communicate with others, and then trying to see things from someone else's perspective. So there's a lot of, I do a lot of work with that in terms of where there's conflict and things like that. So
mhm,
those are some of the things I do. And obviously, again, we talk about, when you're working with someone and you see things and blocks that come up, then it's
mm,
working with them how to work through those blocks and replacing it. If you take something out, like a bad habit or something, you've got to replace it with something good. You can't leave that void. It's
yes.
got to be something in its place. So that's really, some of the little things that I might do with the client in terms of, building more self-awareness.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Mhm.
I like that, like habit replacements, and yeah, it's very true, because I find that um, when you are trying to, I guess, diminish or get rid of one habit, definitely you latch onto something else, especially if you have got
Mm,
like a bit of an addictive personality, So um,
yes.
I
Yeah.
agree there. I agree. Thank you very much for sharing. Terry, what about yourself?
Just to kind of piggyback, definitely journaling. That is my go-to, of course,
Mhm.
as well as the gratitude journaling, to find something to be thankful for, and even celebrating like the small things. Sometimes we want to
Mm,
focus on like the big major milestone, but it's about celebrating each little step, even if it's just little, that
mm,
being
Mm,
grateful or expressing that gratitude and celebrating ourselves. I think that's an important key too, that we
yes.
often wait for others to celebrate us, and sometimes we don't really celebrate ourselves.
Mm,
That is one of the tools that I use with my clients, because we always look for that pat on the back from everyone else instead of actually encouraging ourselves.
mm,
Another form, and it's included in the note to self journal, is writing a love letter to yourself,
yes.
because and with it, I want to say the love letter is 2 or 3 times within the journal,
Mm,
because it's the first one, the first day one, it's
mm,
that love letter. Because what are you thinking about yourself right now? And throughout the process, as you keep going each day, then there'll be maybe day 15 where you're writing that letter again. Is there something that
mm,
is different to you? Because thinking about those inner thoughts, a lot of times we're waiting on other people to give us encouragement, or celebrate us, or give us compliments, or speak nice things or thoughtful things to
mm,
us.
mm,
We don't speak those nice things to ourselves.
yes.
That's an awareness that we need to pay attention to and tap into. Another tip that I would definitely recommend outside of the love letter and the journaling as well, is to examine the how we react to things, because that's
Mm,
another form of self awareness, is how we respond. And a lot of times, thinking about, even with myself, when, because I'm a perfectionist a lot of times. So even when I think, or people may say, "Oh, you did a good job," I'm always looking to see, like, no, I could have did that better.
yep.
And so
Yep. Yep.
instead of just focusing on the negative, like, look at the positive and then focus on that reaction. If you have a negative reaction, why is that reaction there? Or why do you have that response? And write that down. Write out
Mm,
that process and things that you're dealing with and experiencing, and practicing mindfulness. And I
mm,
agree with the question that you asked within the game about color or breathing exercise.
yeah.
Coloring is another form of that mindfulness, because it's the bright colors and how you're
Mhm,
feeling and experiencing, and being in that
mm,
moment. Even mindful eating, I know a lot of times
mhm,
we're rushing and just eating something quick, but just taking time to be mindful and enjoying every bite, it's a good way to cut back, as well as
yes.
a good way to be mindful and taste those seasonings and enjoy and experience that moment. So
Yeah. Amazing. Some really great tips. I hope you're all writing these down, viewers, because I know I'm learning some stuff. And I will throw a few more in the mix. So earlier I mentioned about using the Johari window. Something else that's quite similar to that is 360 feedback. Now, this is something that's usually implemented in workplaces for, I wouldn't even just say managers, but for an employment team, to be able to gain insight and understanding to their behaviors, their compliance with policies, I guess even like their approach to staff. And it's just a set of questions that are answered anonymously and fed back to the individual that's distributed them. The plan from that is to then use it as a way of understanding what areas of development and learning may need to be implemented for yourself. It's also a way of setting a barometer of, this is where I'm at and where I want to get to. So you can use it as a way of goal setting, for example. Even when it comes down to maybe wanting to further your career, you can use it as a baseline of, okay, I've got these skills and I'm missing these skills in order for me to make that next step in my career, or whether it's a level up that you want to go to, say, managerial position if you're in a supervisor role. So that's a 360 feedback overview, very basic overview, but very powerful, I would say, not only for in the workplace, but you can use it outside of work as well. So maybe think about distributing it to close friends, family, your children, even, and look at how you can tailor those questions to support you with the specific areas that you will need to develop as well. So that's one tip. Another tip I would say is, I had it at the top of my head and then I started talking about the Johari window. Um, It's gone. It's gone out of my head now. But what I will say is in a couple of weeks' time, I've got a short little booklet coming out, and it's called Get to Know Yourself in 50 Questions or Less. Now, this is very similar to journaling. There is spaces within the booklet to fill out, your responses, but they are who, what, when, how, and why questions. And I find that a lot of the time when we journal, we might need some prompts. And think of this as a journal prompt booklet that enables you to develop greater self awareness. And in all honesty, I've used this technique myself, where um, I'm able to ask myself a variety of questions, answer them all out. And once you get to, say, the end of the booklet, you're able to then review the answers and know whether there has been a change in your perception of that answer once you've got to the end of that booklet. Now, I use it in a way of being able to heighten myself in respect of that specific area or other areas that I've mentioned throughout the booklet. So it covers things like relationships, relationship with self and with others. It highlights things about your hobbies, your desires, your the things that you might have subjugated traumas trapped within your body, within your mind, within your sphere that's not always visible. So that's something else that I would also highlight. It's not out yet. I'm still perfecting it for public use, but that's another tool that you can use there. And we've got a lovely comment here from Sonia that says, awesome, very informative. And what I really appreciate is the game, engaging and interactive. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you very much. And hopefully one day you'll be a guest on our show, future show. Okay, so my next question is, okay, so we've spoken about what self awareness is, we've given testimonials and shared stories about when greater self awareness has been absent and how we would have benefited from having greater self awareness. So, what I will ask you now is, how do you know when you've actually gained greater self awareness, and what do you see is different? What feels different within yourself?
Hmm.
And I will ask Celia first.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's always work in progress. And think it's like it's something that it's, as I say, when I said it right at the beginning, attaining that that supreme level of self awareness is something that we're
Mm,
always working towards. But as you become more self aware of your patterns and how you respond and how you react to things and why you do what you do, and you've made changes, you'll see, first of all, people will respond to you differently,
mm,
and you'll probably be more confident, you'll be happier, we're more confident in basically in all aspects of your life. Really, it's going to have a knock-on effect in all your relationships,
mm,
whether that's personal or in the workplace. And I think you just feel, you just have I think you're more at ease with yourself as well. It's just like, I don't know, it's like this, it's like a bit cliche, but it's almost like a sense of knowing, it's an understanding, it's like you feel, you've almost like you're together.
mm,
And I think, it's like when you know that, like when someone say tries to trigger you or say something to you, but you don't react immediately, and you can just for that split second, and you can not react, and then you respond, then you
mm,
know that you've reached a higher level of self-awareness. And I think,
mm.
as I say, it's work in progress, and we're constantly, there are things that happen to us all the time, but we work on it.
Yeah.
But you get to a level where you definitely have more confidence in
Mhm.
yourself, and in your in your working environment, and the people that you deal with, the conversations that you have, and the reactions that people give to you as well.
Mm.
So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Mhm.
that. And Terry, what about yourself?
And that is good. What Celia stated. The only two things that I would add to that, outside of the self confidence, is to that once you what you gain with self awareness is clarity and being intentional.
Mm,
Those are two things that a lot of times when we're trying to uncover or find out who we are, we don't really have as much clarity as we
mm,
would like. And then sometimes we could be all over the place and not really have too much the intention or to be intentional. And
yes.
so once we're understanding who we are, having that more self awareness, the power of influence, like she mentioned about better relationships, healthier relationships, having that confidence within yourself, as well as able to make better decisions, a better decision maker. So that clarity and intention, it plays a part in that as well. So.
Yes, yes, amazing. Thank you, Terry. And we've got a question here, and I'm happy to ask how are we meant to know what age we should start teaching a person self-awareness? This is from Sonia Hart. Thank you very much, Sonia, for sharing this question. So at what age should we start teaching a person self-awareness? And this is a very good question, actually,
Very
because
good
if
question.
you remember in the beginning, I read out that definition, and part of that definition mentioned about adults, and that was the part that I actually disagreed with. So thank you for this question, Sonia, because self-awareness should be something that is taught, I believe,
Early.
as early as possible, as
Yes.
early as possible. So
Yeah.
that's my opinion. But over to you, ladies. What's your thoughts?
Definitely.
Yes. I
As
agree.
early as possible. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's like, it's an interesting question in terms of how that would kind of play out, because, in terms of, children at school or children at home, like the environment that they're in. So if your parents are more self-aware in that sense and aware of it, then that's going to be kind of like, because we obviously often are a product of what we come from. And then
Yes.
we have to work back, and then we're actually clearing out the layers of the things that have happened to
Yes.
us in our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, if we could start early, we wouldn't have so many layers to peel back. But obviously there's like, where are we going to go
Yeah.
to get that support? So that's, is it something they can teach children more in school, or a part of the education system? It's something that needs to be built in, because, as you know, it's right. I mean, it has a huge knock-on effect, for us if we're not self-aware, and it's such a positive benefit if we are. And as Terry was talking about, obviously making decisions. I mean, that's the one thing when you're not clear on things, you can't make decisions easily. So, that would really help. And that also then knocks on with terms of self-confidence as well.
Yes.
Yes.
So the
Yeah.
earlier the better, in
Yeah.
my opinion, definitely. But it's just how we kind of work that in is
Yeah.
an interesting one.
Yeah.
I like what you said about the layers. Well, there's two things that I want to comment on about what you just said. So you mentioned about the layers, and I completely agree. And I use this phrase. Well, it's from onion therapy. Those of you that know onion
Yeah.
therapy, peeling back the layers of healing, well, peeling back the layers of trauma, so that way you're able to go through a process of healing. And that's definitely something that I resonate with, because going through my own journeys, and I will say journeys, not journey, but journeys of healing, I'm able to recognize that when I penetrate a layer and I'm peeling back that I guess the existing shattering of what I'm trying to undo, I'm then able to recognize with greater self-awareness how to approach the next layer that needs to be penetrated. So that's one thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you mentioned about growing up in a household where your parents may not have been self-aware, I can really resonate with that, because you're then passing down the trauma, or in reverse, passing down the healing processes, in order to enable that healing and awareness and understanding for the individual. And yeah, you can then have a product of healthy, healed adults, rather than broken adults that are trying to be healed and heal their inner child wounds. So yeah, that's all I wanted to speak to that. So thank you very much, Celia, for that. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yes.
And Terry, what's your take and thought on the question from Soon? I'll bring it back up again.
I definitely agree with both of you all. The earlier, the better. And kind of as Celia, as well as you stated, Rihanna, about the importance of the environment of the parents, because a lot of times we are a product of our environment. And so if parents have more self-awareness or have been working on their self-awareness, of course, they can pass it down to their children. I have a 6-year-old. And so by me working on my self-awareness, working on me, it's like I'm utilizing that with him as well. And I think it's definitely important. Now, sometimes he'll bring it back.
Yeah.
How old are you? Are you 20? But it's really good. And also, I think it's definitely important. I see here in the U.S. where a lot of the schools now are incorporating social emotional learning,
Yes.
and so that is a form of the self awareness where
Mm.
they're talking about and expressing emotions and paying attention or teaching children how to tap into those emotions or be able to express. So I
Mm,
think it's of course, peeling the layers. It's important to incorporate it in school as well as at home.
yeah.
But even if
Mm.
they receive some type of exposure somewhere, it's very helpful and impactful. But yes, absolutely, the sooner the better. Like you said, we'll have more healed adults than we will have broken ones.
Yeah.
That have the awareness of what's going on and to understand or to be comfortable and confident in talking about it. Because a
Yes.
lot of times we don't want to talk about it, and I believe, me personally, with our healing begins when we want to confront and talk about it, when we express
Mm.
it more instead of holding it in. So,
Yes. Yes, I agree. I
mhm.
agree. And Sonia here agrees with well, she said that she likes what you said, Celia, about why can't I read today? I like what you said about healing generational trauma by parents being self-aware. Um,
Absolutely.
Mm.
and yeah, I think it's very true because we can pass on so much to children, even if it's not our direct children. It could be nieces, nephews, the
Mm-hmm.
children that we are in contact with in our local
Mm-hmm.
communities, because they have us on the pedestal and they look to us for understanding and again awareness and how to be within the world and acceptable behaviors and acceptable talk.
Mm.
So again, you mentioned, Terry, about self-criticism. That's really something that I evidently try to actively change. So when I notice myself saying something, and I will say this specifically because I went on holiday with my son recently. He's 16, blessed, and even just going through that process with him, I said on his birthday, like, oh, sometimes I feel really emotional when it comes to your birthday because it's just a new year and a new way of being and understanding. And he turned around and he said to me, Mum, but you don't need to cry. You've done everything you need to do. I'm an adult now. And I was like, you're so self-aware at 16. You're not an adult, but the fact that you've given me the reassurance. So how you understand yourself and how you work on yourself really does permeate through generations, because I know at his age, at 16, I wasn't of that mindset that I felt able to um I guess feel so comfortable with being myself and being like being able to assure my parents of my own comfortability, safety, well-being. But yeah, that's my take on it. So thank you there. And we've got a comment here from, again, our previous guest from last month. This is Sister Melinda. She says, such a valuable conversation. Thank you, ladies. Or discussion, sorry. Thank you, ladies. And one last comment here from Sonia. I'm so looking forward to mass healing, but realize that it is the younger generation that will carry the torch for this healing to take place. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we
Yes.
need to ensure we're instilling the correct values, support, and understandings as much as we can.
Mhm.
So yeah,
It's one thing that I want to add really quick.
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
thinking about another, like when you mentioned about the self criticism. I know with my son that I've been practicing, because we talked about it earlier about the people pleasing,
Mm,
where we're
Mm.
definitely looking for others to provide the encouragement and celebrate us, which is great. I'm not taking
hmm
away from that, but I know practicing with my son. Um, of course, I'll tell him that I'm proud of him, and when he delivers news about how he's done at school and everything, and playing basketball or whatnot. But I make sure that I'm intentional with asking, well, how do you feel about what you did? Like, how
mm,
are you
Mm.
proud of you? And so he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, because while it's great to have this encouragement from everyone else, sometimes we don't get that from people. But
yes.
what do you feel about?
Mm.
So are you proud of you? Do you feel like that you've done your best when you were out there on that court, or you did your best at school based off of your grades or spelling tests? How do you feel about
Mm,
it? If you put your all in it, then you should definitely be proud of you. So when I asked him that, he was like, I'm proud of myself. Thank
yes.
you. So that's
Yes.
another part of being that, of having that self-awareness and starting early. That's
Mm,
important. That my parents, I love them. They did their best, but I wish they kind of would have instilled that into me a little bit early instead of me just waiting on everybody else to celebrate me and give me a pat on my back. Because at a certain age, it seems like that kind of disappears. And even if you did do a good job, sometimes people will refuse to tell you.
Yes.
Mm, mm, mm,
So we have
mm.
to celebrate
Because of their lack of
that.
self-awareness.
Yes.
Oh, I
Mm.
can so relate. Definitely. Oh, amazing. So thank you, ladies. And I guess this is my second to last question to you both. Because we've kind of spoken a little bit about the benefits of self-awareness, but I want to understand, and I want the viewers to understand, if there's a specific link between self-awareness and emotional intelligence from both your personal and professional experience. So Celia, I'll start with you, please, my love.
Yes, I mean, I do believe there is definitely a connection, and I think there's been the psychological studies that say that there is a connection between. I think it's one of the elements of emotional intelligence. And when we talk about,
Mm,
our IQ, don't we? It's our mental and our intellectual, and it's our EQ, it's our emotional and
mm,
relational side
yes.
for the emotional intelligence. And yes, self-awareness is a huge part of that. It's like it's that self-knowing, it's the self-regulation, it's like you're tuning into your emotions, and it's how
Mm,
you're processing them, and how you speak your emotions as well. So
mm,
it's how you deal with things. So yes, for me, there is a big connection. And it's actually a really important one, because obviously the emotions that play out,
Mhm,
if you can kind of, again, if you can get that awareness and you can stop, and
mhm,
you can, yeah, exactly, here you can exactly think about what you're doing, what you're feeling, and then before you actually, it's like almost like stopping yourself and being aware in that moment of something happening,
yes.
so you can make the change. Again, that's also obviously, not always, not, we don't always want to do that. Sometimes you actually do want to react to something, but
Mm,
in terms of like things that are happening in your life or how you're dealing with people, then having that awareness is very, very, very important.
mm, mm. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And Terry, what about yourself?
I agree. Just like Celia said, it is definitely a link, because it is a part of the emotional IQ or emotional intelligence, because it comes with managing or paying attention to your emotions, having better communication, kind of like what we mentioned earlier about the better decision making.
Yeah.
So it's definitely linked to the actions, thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So yeah, and the emotions on other people. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes,
definitely
yes.
important.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I guess my last question, and before we round up this wonderful, wonderful show with my wonderful panel, um, we've spoken a bit about the different areas of our lives that greater self-awareness can benefit from. But I think what would be helpful is if you have any specific resources that you can recommend for this practice. So, for example, we've mentioned about work, with family, with individual emotions. Are there any specific resources that you can recommend to help an individual develop self awareness in these different areas?
I think there are certain programs online that you can find that you can actually do like quizzes to check your
Mhm,
self
Mm,
awareness.
mhm,
Obviously, I'll go back to Terry's resource,
yeah.
the journal, doing that, and what you've done, what you've
mhm,
created as well. Because what I like about what you've created as well is that you've got those steps,
yep,
but you actually see the progress,
mhm,
and then
Mm,
you go back and you're changing your perception as you go through, which I think is invaluable, because
mm,
that's
mm.
when when you've made progress. So those are all great resources that
mhm,
you've already offered. And I think obviously even down to communication with others that you have a good relationship with in terms of
mhm.
feedback.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. And just another little plug here. Make sure you get your Note to Self 30-day self-discovery journal for only $9. The link is there in the comments. Thank you very much. And Terry, what about yourself? Is there any other resources or tools of support that you are aware of that you can share with our guests?
I I would just say, kind of piggybacking on what Celia said about the resources, of course, the journals, as well as your booklet that will be coming out soon. The feedback from others,
Mm,
ones that you trust, and the ones that you know will be honest. Because sometimes
mm.
we want to get the feedback, like, "Oh yeah, you're great, you're perfect, nothing is wrong." But we want those to have that conversation and receive that feedback for people that will actually be authentic and honest.
Mm,
And you really know them and they really know you. And then like, hey, I love you, but this is something that I see, or encourage you, or see kind of the changes and things that you have. And if you don't have the individuals that you trust or feel comfortable or confident in talking to, life coach, relationship coach. That's
yes.
another tool that you have two people, three
Yep.
really that's here
Exactly.
that you can reach out to, that I know we'll be happy to help. So as well as the
Yes.
online classes as in assessments that are there if you want to start there. So
Yeah. Great. And I guess I will add there are books that you can
mhm,
go and read, or audio books you can go listen to. Podcasts is also a great way to gain great insight for free as well.
mhm,
But also I would say there's an exercise that I do with some young people called storyboarding, and it's enabling you to understand retrospectively a situation that may have been uncomfortable, may have been difficult, but it's to gain greater insight into the other person's perspective, kind of like what you said earlier, Celia, about walking in someone else's shoes.
mhm,
And it covers three different aspects: what you saw, what you heard, and what you made sense of.
mhm,
Now, those are three different things that can really impact your understanding of self and understanding of a situation. And it's a very basic storyboard. You can even draw it out on a piece of paper. But if you have those three columns, what you saw, what you heard, and what you understood, or what you made sense of it, and if both parties or all parties involved in the situation completes the sections, and then you sit and compare, when obviously the tensions aren't so high, but compare the notes, compare the storyboard, and compare the narrative that has been attached to these situations. That is a way to gain greater hindsight and understanding, but also unlock conversations with others around something that might potentially have been very difficult to overcome, very difficult to talk about, but it also enhances your creativity skills as well, because you're able to tap into your inner child through drawing, through coloring, much like what Celia said before. I'm an avid coloring book creator as well as colorer. So yeah, that's one of my go-tos, as well as journaling. So those are my tips as well. Okay, so we have one final comment we have here to share before we round off. So Sonia says people think that by lying to you is being kind,
mhm.
but it is in fact the opposite. It does not allow healing to take place. And
True.
that is very true. Thank you very
Mhm.
much for that comment, Sonia. Okay, so we are rounding off to the end of the power of self awareness, and I can definitely say it's been a pleasure hosting you both today, getting to know exactly what you do, your insights, and yeah, just having a really great conversation. So I'm going to ask Celia, what projects, books, workshops, anything, what have you got coming up for 2023 that you want to let our audience know about?
Yes, so I have a program that's called it's called Heal Your Heartbreak. It's incorporating my Heal It method,
Hmm.
and that's sort of up and running now. And obviously, anybody can find me through my website, Your Relationship Guru, or on Facebook. Everything's under the same name, Your Relationship Guru. So
Yes.
that's where you can find me. That's what I'm currently doing. Obviously, coaching. More programs coming in the making. So keep an eye on that. And I do a lot of videos, a lot of posts. So there's a lot of information that you can get on my website or Facebook. About relationship tips or anything really on that subject, on
Mm.
those subjects. So that's where to go for me.
Yes. Lovely. And Celia, before you so quickly forget, I'm sure that you are a published author as well, aren't you?
Yes, I wrote some handbooks on legal handbooks, basically on how to cope with basically, the fallout really from breakup and divorce. It was primarily for fathers at the time. It was to raise awareness.
Hmm.
So it was really something that came out of something that somebody actually asked me, who'd been a a client and
Mm,
said, you should do something on this. So yes, a lot of it is on the practical and emotional side of dealing with that, but obviously that at that time was sort of legal tips as well. Yes.
mm. I
And it
think that's
ties in
so
with what I do
powerful.
now. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And that's so powerful. And I said to Celia, but when preparing for the show, that um, it's very rare to find women speaking on this space around how men can navigate the sphere of, family law and the legal and practical and emotional aspects. So thank you for creating that invaluable book, and it's definitely been shared with individuals that I know that can find it helpful. I myself, I work for advocacy charity, so I will be sharing it with my colleagues as well, because we support families, both either parents or individual parents going through whether it's child protection issues, family court, things like that as well. So that will definitely be a wonderful resource to share with my colleagues. So thank you for that,
Thank
Celia.
you.
And Terry, what's coming up for you? Where can people find you? What is the intel?
Yes, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under the No to Thrive Collaborative. On Facebook, it's the No to Thrive Collaborative and consult coaching and consulting. So, but you, as soon as you pull up the No to Thrive Collaborative, you'll be able to locate me. And projects that I'm working on now, I'm working or finishing a book. It's actually a book as well as a journal, and it's titled Nurturing Self. And
Mm,
so, what that is, the nurturing self, a healing pathway to soul nurturing. I
mm,
feel like that's an important aspect of while we're understanding our identity or have more self awareness. Sometimes we need to tap in a little bit more.
yes.
And the chapters kind of cover um, each component or different levels of self, whether it's broken self, kind of where we're starting at, it's and dealing with wounds that we may have experienced, father wounds, mother wounds, the
Mm,
inner child wound, as well as then once we tap into those areas, then we'll move to recognizing self, forgiving self, and accepting self.
yes.
It will be a book, of course, and then it'll also have a companion or workbook journal that goes along with it as the companion
Yeah.
book. And then the next thing that I'm currently working on is I'm also a certified nurturing parenting program facilitator. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've developed, created my own program that's working with parents to also focus on that aspect of nurturing them. And it's titled The Determined Parent.
I
And
saw this.
and
Yes.
so it highlights different levels. It's a 6-part series. And the first one we just work with this current group that I'm working with, and it's the wounded parent, and
Mm,
how we are parenting through trauma and things that we need to do or be aware of, that if we don't get the help, if we still have this unhealed trauma, how we're passing it down
mm-hmm.
through intergenerational traumas, and it is affecting our parenting styles. It's
Yes.
affecting our relationships with our children as well as their relationships with other people. And so
Mm,
we need to kind of get to the root of it, have the awareness, and let's do something about it, because we're raising the next generation and we don't want to have them as broken adults as well. So
mm.
I'm excited for that, and it's definitely more to come. But those are the two major projects that I'm working on this year.
Amazing. Amazing. See, audience, you can see why I've got these wonderful guests on the show, right? Make sure you are taking advantage of all of the offerings that they have provided. I will show our last couple of comments before I start taking in the self words. So I want you all to be thinking about what you want to see coming up next. Okay, so we've covered so far the power of self development. Today we are doing the power of self awareness. What do you want to see next? And these are self words that we are looking to improve, embody, or deny. So it could be things around self love, self worth. Self actualization, or it could be on the other side, self destruction, self depleting. It could be even, yeah, whatever it might be that you want to see us talking about with another set of everyday professionals. I call them everyday professionals because we are all professionals in our lives. We know exactly what we need. As Terry said, we know exactly what we need to heal, thrive, and live our self fulfilled lives. So have a think whilst I read out these comments. So, Nicola has said, good listening while cleaning. Thanks, ladies. Thank you for joining, Nicola. Much appreciated. And Keisha has said this discussion has been amazing and insightful while on my self love journey. Thank you, Keisha, for tapping into the show. So, over to you two. What self words would you like us to explore next? And I will also be reading out any comments from our audience as well. So, have a think. If you've got your self word already, it can't be something that's already been picked. Okay, so we can't do self development or self awareness. We've got to pick a different self word. So, Terry, what self word would you like to see next on the show?
Shocking, but I want to see self-destruction.
Okay.
Because self-love, we talk about that all the time, but sometimes we don't talk about that, those self-destructive behaviors.
It's very true. All right, I've got self destruction. Okay, Celia, what about yourself?
Well, I was going to say self-sabotage, but that's quite close. So I
Mm,
could change it. I could maybe say self-motivation.
okay, lovely. Right, I'm writing these down. Thank you. So we've got self destruction, self motivation. Right, anyone in the audience, we've got people watching. What self words would you like us to cover next? Because these are going to be voted on via social media. They're going to be polls from tomorrow, say mid-afternoon, open for 3 days on Instagram stories, Facebook group, as well as Twitter and LinkedIn. So any suggestions from our audience? So Sonia says, I like that title, Terry. I like the title. We need some suggestions. Come on. Throw them at me. Throw them at me. Because if it's just two, then okay. So I like the idea of self motivation, Celia. This is what Sonia mentioned here. Okay. Any other self words? Come on, audience. I know you're there. If not, then I'm going to ask Terry and Celia for another one. Okay. They seem to be quite shy and quiet today. All right. Celia, another self word, please.
Self-reliance.
Oh, self reliance. I like that one. Thank you very much. And Terry, another self word from you.
See, now I'm okay. I'm trying to think. I don't know why all of the negative ones are coming to my
Okay, well,
mind.
we've got a suggestion here from Sonia. We've got self preservation.
Mhm. I said self-neglect because we neglect ourselves a lot of times. But I
Oh,
guess
wow.
they could go with self-destruction, but it's a little bit different. Self-neglect. I'm gonna go with that one.
Okay, self neglect.
Mhm.
Okay, and then we've got Nicola has said self enlightenment.
Okay.
Okay, and we've got sacred selfishness.
That's
Interesting.
right.
All
Hmm.
right, and now we've also got self improvement. So empowerment.
Mhm.
All right, so I'll read them back out and we will be voting next week up until Wednesday evening. So we've got self destruction, self motivation, self reliance, self preservation, self neglect, self enlightenment, sacred selfishness, and self empowerment. So I don't know if I'm able to put all of these in one poll, but what I might do is take one of the self words from you both and then one of the self words or the self words from the chat as well.
Mhm.
So that way they can all fit into one poll.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we have unfortunately come to the end of our show. How do you feel? How do you feel?
Feel good. I
Feeling good?
definitely enjoyed sharing this platform with you all, and this has definitely been an amazing discussion. Good talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Celia, how do you feel?
Delighted to to have had the opportunity to be here with the two of you today, and just to talk about this, because it's actually when you start talking about it, you really actually do start thinking about it.
Yes.
So it makes you more self-aware. In fact,
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it's been very, very, very good, very helpful. Really enjoyed it.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. And guests and audience, make sure this is the last plug. Make sure you grab your note to self journal. You can see Terry's holding it up there. For $9 indefinitely. Okay. Make sure you grab that amazing offer. If you are interested in applying to be a guest and exploring one of these next self words that we've just highlighted, you can use that link there. If you want to learn more about what the Self Project actually is about, you can check out this link here. And if you want to become a future sponsor for any upcoming shows, whether it is next month or towards the end of the year, make sure you reach out to me using this email address. So I'm going to say a warm and wonderful thank you to you all. Happy Self Care Sunday, and have a blessed and most beautiful day. Take care, everyone.
Bye.